Hello everyone. Today, I've decided I'm fed up with being the good guy in Starsector, as I've spread democracy, destroyed the AI threat, but today, I'm going to make millions selling drugs. The goal is simple: acquire a majority of the drug market while also taking a large share in both the harvested organs and heavy weapon markets, which should earn us millions of credits. That's it. That's the plan for today. Enjoy. For this run, I decided to spice things up a little by installing a handful of mods to give us a little more depth. Plus, I started a game with a small trade fleet, because we all knew what I was about to do. After the last few videos where I tried my best to be a good person, it was finally time to do some goddamn drug smuggling. So I picked bulk transport, added expanded cargo holds to my mule, and headed towards Tritech, who fucking shot me with artillery. It turns out we were at war with them. In fact, we were at war with a majority of the galaxy, and the only people who actually liked me were the Church and the Syndrians, neither faction being the ideal supplier of drugs as they were illegal in both. So this meant there was only one thing we could do, and that was to suck up to Tritech until they tolerated us. The best way we could do that was via system bounties. Not exactly what I planned to do with my trade fleet, but here we are, life sucks I guess. Unfortunately, they didn't have one, but the Hedge did. With them also wanting to kill me, I headed over and got to work beating up a pirate scout. After bravely defeating 3 ships, I recovered a couple of hounds which would help us transport drugs in the future. After I fixed them up at a nearby station, I tried to return, only for the Cabal to ambush me. They blasted loud and obnoxious music and then threatened to punish me if I didn't hand over one of my ships. Not really wanting to give one up, I used a story point to fast talk the guy and then scurried away. Now, they were one of the 2 modded factions I had added, but they didn't really have too much of an impact, as all they did was fly around blowing up trade fleets and trying to mug me. Anyway, while returning to the Hedge, I got a little off course as I chased down a poor smuggler. Carrying some supplies and recreational drugs, it was guarded by a single brawler. Not letting this fantastic opportunity go to waste, I killed them. I made 76,000 credits selling the drugs, plus an additional 38,000 selling the supplies to a trader at the bar. From what I gathered, she was upset that a shipment had never made it, something we definitely didn't have anything to do with. With over 100k in our bank account, I headed over to one of the only safe spaces in the galaxy and sat around trying to figure out what to do. Browsing the Syndrian market for opportunities, I saw one to sell some fuel to the League. I'll be honest, I don't normally bother with such a low price commodity, but they were paying over double. This not only paid for a fuel ship, which helped me not run into the massive skill issues I had in the last video, but also helped pay for a condor, as my plan was to look for some more smugglers while doing some system bounties. I ended up jumping into a system with pirate activity and saw a luddic church convoy getting attacked. Being the good citizen I am, I rushed to help them and spent the majority of the battle killing frigates with my lasher, which was fine until we had to kill a heavily armored enforcer. But hey, at least we were able to recover it. After kitting it out with, to be honest, whatever guns I could find, we went back to find that there were no more pirates. This was becoming a common theme, as every system bounty only had 1 to 2 pirate fleets, and this made it really difficult to make friends. It then finally dawned on me that we had another faction. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the cart of Freetraders. The CFT, located in the top right of the core worlds, are a faction that focuses on trading and salvaging. This means nearly everything was legal aside from harvested organs. Plus, they didn't want to kill me. Why I didn't head there at the start? I don't know. Once I arrived, I loaded up on as many drugs as possible, which were actually cheaper here than they were at Tritech. And after a couple of drug runs, we added 100k to our net worth. Sadly, the market quickly cooled off, but we did have an opportunity to run some goods to King's Cove. But I thought that would be a little too gamey, as the planets were literally next to each other, and instead I had a great idea: to go bully the people who hate me for their ships. To make this a little more worthwhile, I took a commission from the CFT, who were currently at war with the Hedge and the Church. Heading over to the Hedge, I managed to acquire an Eagle from one of their patrols, which isn't my favorite cruiser, but it will do for now. Shortly after the battle, a truce was signed, so I made my way over to the luddic Church, where I stumbled across a faithful convoy. Considering its contents of heavy weapons, supplies, and machinery, I was surprised that it only had 3 ships that were capable of combat. So I, killed them. Killing them did net us a respectable 24,000 credits, but it was nothing compared to the 491,000 credits we made selling the cargo. Don't get me wrong, I could have made slightly more selling it on the black market, but I didn't want to piss off the faction that pays me. With a large chunk of cash, it was time to treat myself to a new ship, and after browsing the markets for a while, I eventually came across an Aurora, a high-tech cruiser which I like to turn into something I call the Laser Boy. As you can probably guess, the build consists of shoving on as many pulse lasers as possible, with a couple of ion cannons for good measure. Obviously, because I think it's becoming a problem now, I installed safety overrides. Alongside stabilized shields, unstable injector, I also built in auxiliary thrusters for the extra maneuverability and hardened subsystems so it could last longer. Now for the big question, was this ship good? No. Since it didn't have any bonuses against armor, it took bloody ages to kill anything. In fact, it took so long to kill a Venture, I just kind of gave up and killed other ships. To make this ship a little more useful then, I replaced a few of the lasers with anti-armor missiles, while also picking up the energy weapon perks to improve our damage. This did make our lives slightly easier when it came to killing another trade fleet. Once again, we were paid 25,000 for the trouble, but the real money was made selling weapons on the black market. However, instead of buying a capable combat ship, this time I wanted something that was going to help me explore the galaxy. So I bought this, an Arafuser Capital Class Custom Combat Support Ship from the CTF mod. This ship came with a built-in operations center and a salvage gantry. Since we were going out to explore the galaxy, I built in surveying equipment, and combined with the few shepherds I had, our surveying cost was reduced by 125. Alongside that, it came with 4 fighter bays, which admittedly you can only build drones in, but it did have a massive mining laser on the front. Yeah, this ship's pretty good considering I only paid like 200,000 credits for it. Anyway, I accepted a handful of survey quests, one of which was at the top of this nice line of stars. What wasn't so nice was the fact that it was a high danger system. Inside, not only did I have to dodge remnant fleets, I also had to dodge their artillery. So I quickly made my way to the planet, ran the survey package before being hailed by some panic raiders, who wanted some supplies in exchange for missiles. Not one to turn down some missiles, I discovered they were used outside of combat and their purpose was to push enemy fleets away. So naturally, I wasted nearly all of them rocket jumping because I thought it was funny, and in the end only using one for their original purpose. After completing the rest of my survey quests, I explored the rest of the stars in the line. The first 3 were disappointing, only having a couple of barren worlds and an arid world. Oh, and some pirate raiders who had a really bad time. However, in the final star, I found what I think is one of the best planets I've ever seen. A Terran world with bountiful farmlands, abundant organics, vast ruins, and a hazard rating of 75%. This was an absolute beast of a planet, and a perfect location for our capital. With it being so close to the core world and the other factions already starting to expand, I decided I couldn't afford to miss the opportunity and rushed back to the CFT to load up on crew. Don't get me wrong, I was not ready to start my own faction. My fleet was tiny, my finances weren't great, and remember a majority of the galaxy still wanted to kill me. But I was not going to let one of them colonize this planet. So I resigned from my commission with the CFT, colonized the planet, and gave it the simple name, Just a Humble Farm. Since the planet had vast ruins, I decided to start with some tech mining. To maximize its potential, I improved the building using a couple of story points, and threw in a beta core because sadly, I didn't have an alpha at this point. Once the month had ticked over, you wouldn't believe it. It uncovered us an onslaught. Nah, just kidding, that was in a ship graveyard below the planet. What we actually found was all of this. Not bad considering it had a couple of blueprints, 3 gamma cores, and a handful of supplies, but sadly that was all it really found, as every consecutive month just gave us a steady stockpile of fuel and supplies. Moving on, I got into a pretty rough fight with some pirates where I basically lost my entire fleet except from my mining rig. I managed to just about scrape out a victory against 4 cruisers thanks to its spam of mining drones and the fat mining laser on the front. After recovering my entire navy, I went back to the core worlds to sell some gamma cores to Tritech. While at the planet, I popped into the bar and spoke to a man who wanted us to supply him with a steady flow of drugs. He was going to pay us 15,000 credits a month for a reliable flow of 5 drugs a month for 5 cycles. Since we were going into the drug trade anyway, I accepted. Now, to get a flow of 5 drugs, I thought we were going to need a biofactory, which is an item you can attach to your light industry to increase its output. However, finding this goddamn thing was impossible. I spent bloody ages trying to find this item. I searched research stations and planetary ruins, and it was nowhere to be found. I even tried to find the mothership, but every survey ship just led to a dead end. Eventually, my humble farm hit level 4, so I rushed back to remove all the AI cores before the hedge beat my ass. I also discovered that my planet had developed a luddic majority, which was perfect, as this boosts your output of your light industry. To increase our production further, I took the skill Industrial Planning, which brought us up to 4. An easy way to get up to 5 would have been to improve the building, but I didn't have enough story points because I spent them all improving the spaceport and way station for that sweet accessibility. But I did have enough points for a massive brain play, which was to increase our production by defeating the Luddic Church crisis. This would double the effect of the Luddic majority, and all it would cost me is a single story point to escalate the crisis. Unfortunately, instead of a holy armada, a Tritachyon mercenary fleet was being sent at us. But that's not a problem, as I had a battle station with an alpha core, backed up with 4 capital ships. Once they arrived, I introduced their high-tech navy to my mining laser, and after a couple of battles where I made their Paragon with 3 S-mods my bitch, the mercenaries were defeated. Unfortunately, we couldn't recover it, which made me very sad, but I was able to recover a few of their ships, so it made it look like I had an actual navy now. Thankfully, the next escalation led to the church's attempted takeover. Originally, I was a little nervous when I saw they had 3 Invictuses, but after watching the rest of their navy dive headfirst into my battle station, they were isolated and we took them down easily. With the battle over, I recovered one for myself, which I promise I used at some point in this video. Furthermore, I should be producing enough drugs now. I checked my planet to see that we were producing 7 drugs. Yeah, that whole baiting the Luddic Church in for a scrap was completely pointless, because the planet had leveled up before the church even arrived, giving us more production. Plus, I could have just used the alpha core to increase it as well. But this did give me an idea. Why don't we just crack out all the colonial crises in one go? This would allow us to focus on dominating the market without having to worry about someone trying to screw me over every 5 minutes. So that's what I did. We killed a pirate raid, just about scraped out a victory against the League. We definitely did not mess up a police raid by clicking on the planet instead of their fleet. On the second attempt though, I made sure to press the resist arrest button and then killed them. This just left us with the Luddic path and the hedge, both from which were crying about my technology use. Now unfortunately, we can't get rid of the hedge's inspection fleets. Well, you can by not using AI or being a coward and hiding behind the League, so we were just going to have to deal with that. The Luddic path, however, we either throw loads of money at them or a planet killer, or wait for them to raid us. To bait them in, I colonized another planet and called it just another farm, and slapped on a bunch of AI cores and other technology until they decided to raid me. Which, yeah, it didn't go very well for them. This left us with just a hedge. But there wasn't really anything I could do about that because I had no intentions of removing my AI cores. So, whenever they sent an inspection fleet at me, I made sure enough money was put aside so that they found nothing. To celebrate against, well, a majority of the galaxy, I built a museum and showcased our spoils of war to my population, who were not that interested. Anyway, I was sitting on around 20% control of the drug market with just 2 planets. Just a humble farm was producing a boatload of money thanks to the Luddic majority buff and being governed by an alpha core. Not sure why you can do that, but I'm not going to complain. Just another farm was bringing us in 50k. It was producing drugs via a biolab from the CFT mod, which can later be upgraded into grey industries, which will also produce us weapons. Now this building might be a little bit overpowered as it doesn't require an industry slot unless you upgrade it. And that gave me a fantastic idea. And that was to find planets that have organics on them and then just build a mine in a biolab. I ended up colonizing a couple of nearby tundra planets and biolabbing them up, bringing us up to a respectable 31% of the market. But I wanted more. In between all the colonial crisis stuff, I had spent my time searching far and wide for that stupid biofactory. Annoyingly, I didn't find it, but what I did find was a very nice looking system in the corner. It had 2 tundra planets, a desert world that all had organics, and it was the perfect location for our little operation. So I loaded up on crew and colonized the planet, and I'll be honest, the naming was starting to go downhill. We had Super Hot Farm, running out of farms, and a farm down tundra. These farms only increased our share of the market by an additional 6%, because I think we had kind of capped out. Any additional labs from this point didn't raise our market share, but instead lowered the revenue from our other planets. So, this was a problem, and left us with only one thing we could do, and that was to burn down the competition. You may look at this table and think, damn, that's a lot of people producing drugs. Well, technically that's not true, as a majority of the planets are just passively producing them from their population centers, and there are only 3 planets that were actually producing. One owned by Tritech, the Prison Freeport, and our old faithful friends the CFT. So I put together a raiding party. Okay, maybe I went a little crazy and recruited 3,000 Marines. I targeted all 3 producers and burnt their light industry to the ground. That should do it, right? Video over? Well, no. After all that, I checked my market share and saw it only pushed our production up by 3%. If I wanted to control the black market, we were going to have to do a little conquest. And my first target was the other criminal elements within the galaxy. But if I was going to be the new Pirate King, I was going to have to prove my worth as a captain. So I constructed some more heavy industry and built myself a warship capable of uniting them under my banner. An Atlas Mark II. Arguably, the best ship in the game. For those that don't know, it's a repurposed trade ship with 2 large missile mounts on the back, 2 large ballistic mounts on the front, and an accelerated ammo feed. I didn't go too crazy on the build, just having an autocannon and an assault gun on the front, and a couple of locusts on the back. For hull mods, just armored weapon mounts with a built-in targeting feed and flux distributor. With this mighty ship, I was able to pull off some amazing feats, like destroying a legion in single combat, followed up with destroying 5 onslaughts all by myself. Jokes aside, I used the ship to defend against a few invasions before I remembered that I had the perfect weapon of war sitting in my museum. Pulling her out of my museum, I came up with this design. Now, I'm not sure if this is how it's meant to be built, but I thought that 10 Devastators would be a good idea. For hull mods, I had auxiliary thrusters, armored weapon mounts, and an automated repair arm, while building in reinforced bulkheads and resistant flux conduits for that extra vent speed. And I have to admit, I was very impressed with this ship. We smashed anything that was put in front of us, and I started conquering planets one by one. And finally, after about an hour of conquest, I had achieved our goal, as we had 52% of the drug market, 32% of the harvested organs, and 46% of the heavy weapons. These combined with everything else, we were making just over 650,000 credits a month, and I thought that was pretty respectable. I won't lie, I was thinking about continuing this run and conquering our old friend the CFT, but then I saw they were in an alliance with both the Hedge and the Syndrians. Not really sure how that happened, but I was able to join. So I did. With Larry's farm now recognized as the largest producer of drugs in the galaxy, I think we were done here. I would like to say a quick thank you for watching. Thanks to the people who fund these stupid videos, and if you enjoyed, please consider a like. I'd also like to thank you all for the kind words in the last video, as I was completely overwhelmed by the positive reaction I got, so expect more variety content soon. And as always, new videos every